Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6:21 p.m. Directors DeFreitas, Ramirez, Nimmo are present tonight, meaning we have a quorum. Thank you to our interpreter, Rodrigo. Would you please share the interpretation instructions with our participants, and then we can turn on the interpretation function. Okay. The first business in order is the approval of the agenda. Directors, are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Our next agenda item is our opening celebrations and updates by our superintendent, Dr. Anna Cole.
Good evening, board and community. I feel like we say this all the time, but these weeks leading up to the holiday break are incredibly busy. So lots to celebrate and update folks on. Want to first congratulate Basalt Elementary School that was voted the best place to work in Aspen, Snowmass, and Basalt in the Aspen Times. So really cool recognition. Cheers to the Longhorns and amazing school culture and climate. That's a really neat recognition. Across the district, we are right in the middle of high school finals week. Students all over are wrapping up projects and showcasing learning. The last few weeks have been full with capstone presentations by the class of 2026, a number of holiday band and choir performances right now, or actually in about 10 minutes. Glenwood Springs Choir is going to go on stage. So we'll, I know folks are, that might be better attended than the board meeting tonight. Tomorrow, our CRES and Riverview preschool students will be performing for celebrations at the end of the semester. If you've seen our staff or students that look like slackers, perhaps walking around the grocery store in their pajamas at 4:30 in the afternoon or flannel, there's been all kinds of spirit weeks going on. Also want to send a special shout out to the students and staff in the Ready for the World program. The students in the program planned, prepped, cooked, decorated, and hosted an absolutely lovely holiday celebration with hands down the best food and decorations in the district. Also want to thank the facilities teams who are flexibly supporting all of these activities that happen at schools all in the evening. And making sure our schools still look good the next morning for kids to learn. And importantly, this time of year, we're also measuring student academic growth. And so we are wrapping up NWA mid-year testing, math and English assessments for elementary and middle schools, some high school students. These assessments are aligned to strategic priority number 2, rigorous learning for all, and the board will get an update on those outcomes at the end of January. So we will have a pretty quick turnaround on those mid-year check-ins on student learning. We're also wrapping up before the break, the Panorama Student Survey. This is also a really critical indicator. It's part of our strategic plan. It's connected to one of our mission measures where we really track student belonging and students' perceptions of belonging through the Panorama student data. It's tied to strategic priority number 1, students first. So we'll also update the board on that when we get that data. So many thanks to all of our school staff and leaders supporting activities, keeping our learning environments focused, celebratory and thriving. And then finally, I want to send a special congratulations to the Glenwood Springs Middle School 6th graders, their families, their faculty and staff who turned out in great numbers last night for the 6th grade celebration of learning. The 6th graders packed the hallways and presented their design thinking projects that integrated standards, concepts, and skills from English language arts, science, and social studies in projects where students identified sticky problems and designed solutions. There's a lot to celebrate this time of year, and celebrations of learning are an absolute highlight. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. The next business in order is a presentation from Dr. Cole on her goals for this year.
Okay, so this is a bit of a mid-year update, affirming the goals that have been co-constructed by the board and myself, really from this fall, to give the board and community an update on where I'm at, what I'm working on, and what the plan looks like moving ahead. This is also part of our process to kind of strengthen systems around superintendent evaluation, accountability, and feedback cycles for the board. There are 5 goals in a professional development plan. So I just want to kind of highlight some of the updates here. Goal number 1 is aligned to our strategic priority on operational excellence. And it's really about making sure that we have a high quality senior leadership team. As you know, and since this goal and these priorities were developed, we have welcomed our new chief of HR and talent, Amy Bruckman, to the team. You know, we continue to feel a gap in terms of not having a public information officer. We're using some consultants this year with some targeted support in that area, and not currently direct hiring that due to budget challenges and limits. And we're continuing to examine district office staffing levels and structures with communications in mind, and certainly with declining enrollment in mind. And working on those pieces that roll up to senior leadership. Goal number 2 was really focused on CLDE program accountability. This has been a priority of the board since you all really tackled an update to the IHBEA policy last spring. And this is tied to strategic priority number 2, rigorous learning for all. We had the first CLDE program review with the board early in October. I think what I heard from that was that there are areas for improvement in the way that first program review happened, specifically around how we can better integrate student academic achievement and growth data beyond just kind of access testing scores. And then, as the board is aware, based on the resolution the board passed this fall, moving forward, CLDE program reviews will include, if appropriate, transition plans around programs that may be shifting in schools. And just a heads up, as the board knows, we'll have some of the targets that are tied to this goal in the access and LTEL data that will come later this spring. Goal number 3 is really connected again to our strategic priority on operational excellence. As we have stabilized our health insurance plans back to CEBT, and also implemented the collaborative bargaining contract with our certified staff, we're still trying to get the dust to settle on some process and timelines around how our IBB calendars work, how our health insurance collaborative solutions team works. So we have brought forward this year a new integrated IBB calendar. We're going to pilot it, see if it works out this year. I think we have some concerns and questions. It's all kind of tied to this goal to really have a clear and coherent process. And I would say we're still working through it. Some real wins, and I'm really grateful for Chief Brockman in this work, is that we really were able to have strong support from all 3 of our IBB groups to align on specific questions around health insurance priorities. And so all 3 of those labor relations teams surveyed their staff using the same questions around insurance to identify priorities. So it's been really helpful for the collaborative solutions team to be able to really compare interests across those 3 groups and try to identify what's going to work there. So lots more to come on this goal as we kind of work to continuously improve this. Goal number 4 is really around staff recruitment and retention, which is tied really tightly to our priority around thriving team. And so the interest here from the board was really to focus on grow your own programs that would provide pathways specifically for our paraprofessionals and our students, especially Latina paraprofessionals and students, to help folks navigate systems towards education credentials. So we're working with Colorado River BOCES, the early childhood education team, to pilot some education internships, which are part of kind of career and technical education pathways. So hoping that second semester we'll have some more high school students getting into our early childhood classrooms, and we'll be leaning on BOCES for some funding to support those students with stipends as part of this plan. And then we're looking at applying for funding for a career navigator, grant funding for a career navigator, to really support this kind of grow your own programs. Because of our limited capacity, this is a pretty significant additional chunk of work. And we recognize that we may need some support and folks, dedicated staff. And so I think we might have some external funding partners that might be interested in some multi-year piloting of this for us. So more to come on this goal. And then goal number 5, this is our North Star. The goal is to eliminate the achievement gap. And as the board is well aware, we're in year 2 of our strategic plan, which is intended and designed to move a lot of levers to address this target. And what we saw in the data from 24-25 were some small areas of growth and areas where we feel a little stuck. Nothing, I don't think we're seeing the substantial moves that we've hoped to see yet. The updates in work plan are really to stay the course with the 5-year strategic plan. We continue to build, especially with Jonathan Landon's support and the entire strategic leadership committee, stronger internal accountability systems, really focused on making sure that we are implementing the initiatives that we think are going to lead to better student outcomes with fidelity, and that we're keeping our measures and metrics updated through the data dashboard, and looking forward to reporting to the board on some of that mid-year data at the end of January. In terms of my ongoing professional development, the focus has really been on the certification goal of me completing an administrative licensure program. So last year completed the UCCS administrator license program, but I need to stack that with the principal licensure program. So I'm focusing on that this year. That work is going to continue through this winter, spring, anticipating completion of that by August. And so that process for this year includes ongoing regular coaching with Tom Gregory, who's former superintendent CFO at Academy District 20, Kathleen Brunza, so there's 2 coaches that work with me as part of this program through the Mountain BOCES principal licensure alt ed program. So really looking ahead, I anticipate that summer 2026 will be a good time to kind of step back, identify needs and gaps for looking at additional professional development that can happen once all the certification PD is over. That's all I got. Happy to take questions.
Great. We will now have 2 minutes for discussion. Each board member will now have 2 minutes for discussion. I'm going to start with Director DeFreitas online.
Thanks, Director After, and my apologies for not being able to be there in person, especially my first meeting as chair. Thank you so much, Director After, for jumping in to chair the meeting. And I just love that our team can kind of support each other. Director Kuhlenberg had that great opportunity to find some time to spend with her kid and watch a performance, and she's done so much for this board and has put in all the hours, so we were glad to be able to make that work. Really quick, I wanted to talk, I had a question about the Grow Your Own goal. I know we had discussed close partnership with CMC, and I was wondering if you could update on what it is we're doing with them that you would consider kind of falling into this bucket. Yeah, that's where I'll start. Thanks.
Great question. You know, I think CMC is absolutely a partner in so many ways in terms of there's just multiple touch points that we have with CMC in terms of working with students, working with staff. I think that one of the challenges for us in really best leveraging the bachelor's degree programs that CMC offers through the elementary education program, leveraging the scholarships they have, the apprenticeship programs, is really the capacity for somebody internally in the district to manage that and help staff navigate the how to blend the CMC systems, which often require mentor teachers and advisors with our staff, and to support folks who are typically first generation. You know, the folks that we're really trying to target would be first generation college students, to navigate the timelines and deadlines for accessing funding at CMC. And so I would say we are well aware of what's possible. Where we are getting stuck right now, frankly, is capacity to really support our staff to navigate those systems successfully. So many of those programs really rely on flexible day-to-day schedules, having a mentor teacher in the same building, being able to step away from your para job, your early childhood job for observations. And so we've just yet to have the capacity to have somebody who can really navigate that. And so I would say currently, to be honest, we're underutilizing CMC programs, frankly, because it's tricky to figure out how to make them fit. And this is really why we're seeing that if we could pilot a couple years of having someone solely dedicated to being that point of contact for our staff, kind of a warm handoff, really helping folks integrate and identify where opportunities are that we could see a lot more utilization.
Do you think that that's something, so, okay, so you're saying that that sort of comes after the establishment of this position. Sorry, I have a very small screen right now. I'm jumping between the career navigator.
Yep.
That comes first, and then you feel like that would allow this capacity to integrate with them a little better?
I think so. It feels like that's where we keep getting stuck. Is making that link and really having clear plans, work plans for folks so that they're typically school leaders or early childhood directors can know when they can count on them, when they can step away for coursework, when they can meet with mentor teachers, who those mentor teachers are. All those pieces feel like we're just getting stuck on capacity and fitting them all together.
Do we have any staff currently enrolled in their programs? Just, the ones that have been able to pursue it on their own?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't have exact numbers. I know just from my work in early childhood that I know we have a couple of people working on associate's degrees. I don't know like the current number of, say, student teachers we have in the district, but we could get back to you on that.
It's not urgent, just I think as we move forward. Another question in your team building, basically, the leadership positions. I know finance has been a big jump forward with Christy. We had the comptroller position, and I think we're still hiring for that one because the first round didn't quite work out. Is that correct?
You got it. Yep. So that position's currently open. We're working to fill it actively. So yeah, it's been it's no surprise. It's just a challenging hiring process in the Valley.
And then my other question is with the PD, outside of the programs that you're involved in right now, would you be comfortable, and you don't have to, but do you have any interest in summarizing if you have like other folks that you would consider mentors in this work or other resources that aren't just inside that licensure program?
Oh gosh. I mean, we all just got back from CASB, the Colorado Association of School Boards, and I definitely leverage that meeting of having a lot of superintendents who I follow and monitor or see as kind of comparables to us because of either what they're working on or who they're serving or where they are geographically as kind of the phone a friend folks. And so definitely leverage having a lot of those people in the same place for connecting with a ton of superintendents while I was there. We participate as a district in a number of groups like CASB, CASE, the Colorado Association of School Executives, the Rural Alliance. And so, there's a lot of folks that I get to connect with through those avenues and absolutely follow up with when there's specific questions or needs, or I just want to learn more about how they navigated certain situations. We meet regularly, and I'm really grateful for this work. The Aspen to Parachute superintendents meet monthly, and those meetings are incredibly beneficial for things that we can work on together, things that we're seeing in the Valley, and then just as thought partners. So I feel pretty well connected across the state with a lot of folks in similar roles. That's not formal PD, but it definitely feels like a supportive network that we have in place.
That's all I have for now. I might come back in the 5 minutes, but I want to give everyone else time too. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you. Director Nimmo?
I might be showing some of my newness here, but can you kind of compare and contrast for me a little bit, like goal 2 and goal with the 5? How are they the same and how are they different in a nutshell?
I think goal 2 is really around, I might have to look back at the slide, is around the CLDE program.
Yeah.
See, they both are part of like our strategic priority rigorous learning for all, which is really about making sure that students have access to grade level standards every day in every class. And our kids all have different strengths and challenges that can make their needs in terms of accessing that grade level content different. Mm-hmm. We are privileged to serve a large population of emerging bilingual students. And so it's then we can kind of identify, we can group a lot of those special supports for emerging bilingual students, the resources that group of students in particular needs to access grade level standards through our CLDE program, so our culturally and linguistically diverse education program. So when we think about helping achieve the goals in our strategic priority of rigorous learning for all, focusing on the strength and efficacy of our CLDE programs is essential. It's critical. Our emerging bilingual students come with incredible strengths and commitment to their education and unique sets of needs in order to access, which is typically English language content and standards. That department is really meant to make sure we have a holistic approach to that. And the goal for that, my goal related to CLDE is to really make sure that those programs that we choose at every school are serving students both in terms of their English language acquisition as measured by the access tests. And I think this is an important push that we, heard from the board, even that the board wanted to see more of, that those programs are working to help kids access content and demonstrate growth and achievement in math and English language arts, because sometimes we don't always look at that data together. So it's a piece of the bigger picture in terms of kind of that goal number 5, which is close the achievement gap overall. And when we name that achievement gap, it exists between students of color and white students. It exists between emerging bilingual students and not emerging bilingual students. It exists between students with disabilities and students without. And it absolutely exists between students whose families' income is beneath the federal poverty level and students whose families are not. So that, that goal number 5 is pretty big and broad. And I would say the goal number 2 is really focusing on a specific group of students in the program, serving them, and that the board's interest in having both of those goals is that what I read from that is that there's an interest and push from the board to attend holistically to the whole thing, and a particular interest to make sure that our CLDE programs are working well for kids. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Director Ramirez?
Yeah, and I just want to preface too that at the end of the superintendent evaluation that we just did, we added as a board in our superintendent goals alignment on the professional development piece for the superintendent, as well as a number 6 on the superintendent goals of professional development. I wanted to ask, and just thinking through too, like, being at CASB, that was so great to be able to network and check in with other school districts. But do you think that you could benefit from having a 1-to-1 executive coach?
For sure. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, that's what Tom and Kathleen are right now through the licensure programs. They're focused on making sure that I meet the standards that the state has laid out for the principal licensure programs and the administrative licensure programs. So they're really targeted to making sure those holistic pieces are there. I do think that once this is completed, it will be really helpful to look at the gaps and needs that I have as indicated from our the board evaluation to really target and have an executive coach moving forward from there. Any high performer needs good coaching. And so, I think that's going to be an important piece of the puzzle. My capacity, I think, to add on top of the current credentialing requirements and educational components right now feels limited to take that on, but by next summer, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you meet again with Tom and Kathleen?
It's about monthly.
Okay. So I think, first of all, I really appreciate this opportunity for us to have this touch point as a board on the goals. I think it's important work. And I think we, as a team, really wanted to continue to support not just your growth, but also this new routine that we've set forth for not just the superintendent, but the board itself as we go forward. And I think this is a good stop point for all of us to just think through the recent evaluation and looking ahead, thinking through this process again and adjusting, I think will be really helpful. And so, I appreciate the update. And I also just want to push on the PD because I think this is something we've discussed as a board and we, have lifted this up in our not just our recent evaluation, but our prior one. And I just think it's important for us as a team. We're always saying that the success of our superintendent is the success of the board and the district as a whole. And I think executive coaching is incredibly important. It's a useful tool that I think, like you just said, right? High performing leaders need high coaching. And I think that one-on-one would be incredibly helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any additional questions, but I do feel like we maybe missed an opportunity to celebrate the completion of your licensing in August. So sorry.
Well, it's not complete because they all have to go together. So I just completed one little section.
Well, that's
And to be
important.
honest, our teachers have to navigate far more complex systems. So it's they really deserve, these are not as tricky as the teacher certifications, and all their credentials and where they're licensed. It's so much more complex. So I appreciate that. And I have a long way to go, and I have nothing to complain about compared to what they have to navigate.
Okay, I get it. Well, be sure not to let us miss an opportunity to
I won't.
congratulate and celebrate when it's appropriate. And yeah, agree on the teaching licensing requirements too. I don't have any additional questions. So directors, we will now have 5 minutes for open discussion if you have additional questions at this time. Remembering that we have a lot of things to cover in this agenda.
Nothing to add.
Yeah, I appreciate the need for the one-on-one executive coaching. And I also recognize the capacity issues that are currently going on. But I do agree with what Director Ramirez was saying, especially once you have those pieces lined up. I wonder, do you have threads out as to who or where you might seek that out already? I'm sure you've thought about it a bit.
We'll start last year with a local organization or a nonprofit that was going to help kind of match. And it didn't really pan out well. I have not, to be honest, dug into it enough yet. I think I've been stuck on the credentialing requirements and I haven't quite looked beyond it yet, but I think that's a fair push and, something that I do need to start working on and see that as kind of a spring thing when I get closer to the end of this piece.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
I'll just say I have a fabulous executive coach I've had the benefit of working with for the last 4 years and can ask her for referrals if that's ever helpful. Okay, great. If no other questions, we will move on. At this time, we welcome members of the public who have signed up to address the board. There are 0 speakers signed up for tonight. Do I have to read the rest of it? Sorry? Oh, thank you. Members of the public who wish to share their views with the board may always do so in writing at any time. For this evening's public comment, we received 1 written comment. Okay, the next business in order is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes routine personnel minutes from our 2 previous board meetings, policies AD, AE, AEE, GBEE, KFA, and repeals of policies CHCA, CHD, GBEEA, and KGB. Directors, are there any items you would like to pull off the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote?
I would like to make a motion to pull policy AE.
Do I have a second? Hold on.
Which one is
Do I
that?
need a second for that?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second?
Yeah, I can second that.
Okay. All right, so in that case, since we are pulling item, which one, AE?
AE, yeah.
For separate discussion and vote, then each board member will have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions.
You do the vote on the consent agenda and then you come back to that one.
Thank you.
So move to pass I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Yes.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, call to vote.
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Nimmo,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Aye.
Okay, now back to where I was. Each board member will now have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions regarding policy AE. We will begin with Director Ramirez.
Yeah, so I pulled policy AE team because I was a little confused as I was reading it again, how it goes from that jumps from that first paragraph to second paragraph regarding the district accountability team. That language regarding the board will adopt and maintain an accountability program to measure the adequacy and efficiency of the educational program. I thought it just was confusing to me how we jumped from a program to the DAC. And so I pulled it because I feel like this needs to have further discussion regarding either the updating the like I wasn't sure if this was meant to be a district accountability policy. And I was really confused on that.
A great question. It definitely is connected to establishing the DAC. And like district accountability committees, school accountability committees, the accompanying regulation really gets into the technical components of how those committees should be set up. I hear your concerns when it talks about academic accomplishments of students and then focuses straight into the DAC. That it feels like maybe there's information missing there on what the program accountability program looks like. Yeah, I mean, we could certainly take it back to policy committee, dig in and look and see if there's other recommended language on what that would look like. When my current thinking on that is that like, oh, well, that's, the strategic plan and the measures and the performance frameworks. But maybe that needs to be fleshed out.
Yeah, it just jumps too brazenly to the next thing on the DAC. And I also think that there should be language about the superintendent's role in this. Whether it's the programming or the DAC, I think that's missing.
Jasmine, okay, I got those notes for policy committee. So was there other stuff? So you were looking at continuity between, when is it talking about? Oh, I'm sorry, Chair, I just jumped right in.
Go for it.
You're looking for continuity in paragraphs 1 to 2. Are we talking about a program or are we talking about the DAC? And you're also looking for clarity around the superintendent's role in this policy. Is that right?
Lindsay, do you have any other comments or questions on that? Okay.
No, just trying to catch the notes for the committee.
Okay.
Catherine.
Director Nima, do you have any comments or questions?
No.
Okay.
Thanks.
I don't either. We will now have 5 minutes of open discussion on policy AE. Anything else?
I think my only question is kind of process and wondering if we need to move to pull this and send it back to policy committee and take
Yes.
Yes.
and
think
take a
that's
vote
great.
on that.
Okay,
folks
so
are
I make a
comfortable.
motion to pull AE policy and send it back to policy committee for review.
Do I have a second?
I
I'll
second. Jinx.
Okay. Call to vote.
Director Freitas,
Aye.
Director After,
Aye.
Director Nemo,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Did we do everything we need to do on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Just noting for the record that Catherine Kuhlenberg has entered the building.
Like Elvis.
Welcome. Okay. Next business in order is a brief presentation from Chief Chicoine and discussion on the school year 24-25 audited financial statement. Welcome. Okay. Is your mic on? Sorry. Is your mic on?
Okay, thank you, Director After. That's better. So we had just spent a wonderful, amazing time with our auditor for a whole hour. I was so excited to go through all the files, go through all the information, to talk about, it was 414 files, 418 or something like that, that the auditors reviewed and that, the district had prepared, for the audit. And so just a whole bunch of work that we've been doing and had presented on those results. The only couple things I would say, and then I'm going to defer over to Paul for the actual report, is that the results that were presented in the audit were favorable compared to last year. And I believe that our team made a lot of huge gains in our systems, in our financial processes to really make sure to shore up our whole system as an organization. And I'm really proud of the team's work. And I believe this is a step in the right direction for our team. Additionally, I know we've been through a lot in 24-25, a lot of financial discussions, and this audit culminates the completion of our health insurance fund and all the concerns around that, those overages. And actually the stop loss that we put into place saved us an additional 800,000, which reflected in the results of our audit that Paul is about to present, and everything else came in really close to what we anticipated. So it's a culture of no surprises is what we like in the audit. So those are the couple things I'd like to state. And then go ahead and Paul, if you want to just give a brief presentation and discussion.
Sure, thank you. I'm an auditor. I don't really say anything nice, but I feel like the district has made a lot of progress. We went through the 2024 recommendations, which was several pages long, and the district has cleared a lot of those items, only has a few remaining. And I think you've made both progress financially and progress on internal controls and systems and communication. And I think the district's trending in the right direction. So be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. We will now have 2 minutes of discussion for each board member, starting with Director Kuhlenberg.
Thank you. First off, for getting us a timely audit, for giving us a mostly clean audit, and for bringing us as far as we've come within just one short year, which I think in the life of things is a very small amount of time. So I don't have any specific questions about the audit. I think that I got most of those answered during work session and was grateful that I could attend remotely. Thank you, everybody, for being flexible with this tonight. And I really just wanted to give your team a thanks, give this team a thanks for the pushes that we've made on finances, and superintendent's team a thanks, and the superintendent a thanks for all of that. I'm hopeful that this is the start of a new consistent cycle and process for the audit, and that this is the kickoff for a timely and engaging budgeting process. So thanks.
Thank you. Great. Director DeFreitas.
Thanks. I had questions addressed in the work session. I appreciate the foundation we're building, making sure that what we can control is being done in a timely fashion, knowing that there's lots of variables that will be in front of us over the next few years as a declining enrollment school district and as a school district who's going to try and take advantage of every opportunity we can to shore up our financial position. So thank you for your work, Paul. Thanks for the time you've given us both tonight and earlier going through this process so thoroughly.
Great. Director Nemo.
I don't have any questions either. I just want to say that I'm so stoked with this team, with your team. When I got to do a tour of the building, I met some other parts of your team, and one of them was like, I love this job. I love this team. We're so tight. And I don't know, that's not something I expected to hear. But yeah, I'm very excited to have you in the seat that you're in with the team that you have. And I look forward to the next year working with you guys and just seeing how we can help.
Thank you so much. Director Ramirez.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I said during the work session. Thank you, Paul, for the time. And to Yadida too. I think it's been really important for us to establish this new relationship and to set these new systems and norms with our finance team and with the auditor. I think this work has been really rewarding in the long run. We've needed to have a finance committee. We've needed to have timelines. We've needed to meet quarterlies, deadlines, and it just feels really rewarding in a moment like this where all of that work has really come to a place where all of us are excited and prepared for a new way of doing finance at the school district. And just really believing in not only our team, but knowing that we're being efficient. And I really appreciate that high level of expectation and diligence from the team. And always grateful at the opportunity to work with you, Paul. So thank you.
Great. I don't really have any questions. I just, because we covered them in both finance committee and in the work session today. I did want to just point out, in case anyone's listening, that the response to the audit board letter makes for good reading to understand how the district is responding to the things pointed out in the audit, and the number of those recommendations decreased significantly from 7 last year to 3 this year. And we had chance in the work session to go through some of the previous year's audit letter, which was good to see and discuss how things have changed it for the better over the last 12 months. So thanks, Paul, for spending time with us today for all this work. And thanks, Christy, for getting us in ship shape here.
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to note one other thing as far as next steps. Now it comes to the, continuing to improve and those kind of things. And the one thing that we're just going to continue to watch is our fund balance and looking at that, looking at our minimum fund balance. And that is a minimum, not a goal, but it's something that we need to continue to watch, given a lot of the uncertainties in the current environment, political, looking at state, looking at federal government, looking at, declining enrollment, all of those kind of things, and assuring that our fund balance is going to maintain organizational continuity. So what that means is that we're not forced to cut in the middle of a year because we have something that happens to us. And so that's where it's important to watch that and make sure that we maintain an adequate cushion between that minimum and where we're at here forward, if at all possible, with all these unknowns that we're working with, so that we can just be really effective as an organization instead of reactive, because we've just got out of that reactive mode. So from 24-25, and it feels really good. I think we're in a really good spot.
Great. We will now have 5 minutes for open discussion if there are any remaining questions.
Thank you, Christy, for bringing that up, because we did talk about that in finance committee in regards to finance policy of talking about that minimum balance. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that, what our conversation and sort of what your expectations or hopes are for the district?
Yeah, thanks for that. So the conversation was we have roughly 3.6 million above our minimum fund balance. It seems like a lot, but looking at the audit report, our general fund revenues is 101 million. So that is, that's not a huge number as a percentage. And so it's something that we need to make sure we're using thoughtfully. Part of the conversation that we talked about was that we do not have a separate fund balance for most of our deferred maintenance and capital items, and there are emergencies that can come up. And so we just have to be thoughtful about that as a potential, and how we maintain that fund balance at its current level. And then the second thing is looking at those risks at the federal, the state level, at looking at what declining enrollment is and watching those trends very closely, and looking at how we can utilize that fund balance to ensure that we have that continuity within the system so we avoid mid-year cuts. And the last thing we alluded to in the finance committee was really looking at that minimum fund balance is to see if that is where we want to land as far as, because we don't want that to be a goal. That's the second time I've said that, but a lot of times people see a minimum fund balance and say, oh, we've got more, so we can spend all that. And just really continue that conversation to make sure that we understand the implications of spending that fund balance down. So,
And I'll note too, that one of the additional things that we as a board would want to consider in policy is adding the language in regards to the audit. And the response letter from the district. That is a practice we didn't do before. And I think it's really important. I think it's been really helpful for us to get into that practice, and it would be really important for us to codify that into policy as well.
yeah, I want to thank Dr. Cole for her work on that and making sure that those systems were put into place, as well as the board and as well as the finance committee, because all of those oversights were not currently put in, or were not previously put into place. And I really believe that shores up our financials as a district, and it puts more eyes on it. And it really ensures that we're going to stay in this place. And if there is something of concern, we can talk about it before it becomes a problem. So I think that those things that Paul has done as an auditor, and the board and the superintendent are super crucial for the future. And I'm really grateful that you've put those things into place.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you staying up here for the next one?
Oh, yes, thank you. I was like, oh, I'm done. No.
The next business in order is approval of the 24-25 assurances for financial accreditation. Do I have a motion to approve the 24-25 assurances for financial accreditation?
I move that the board approve the 24-25 assurances for financial accreditation.
Do I have a second?
As presented. I second, as presented.
As
As presented.
Okay. We'll now have 2 minutes of discussion for each board member, starting with Director Nimmo, if you have any questions.
I don't.
Director Ramirez,
No questions.
Director Kuhlenberg,
I don't have questions on this either. Thank you.
Director DeFreitas.
No questions, thank you.
I don't have any questions either. We now have 5 minutes of open discussion. Hearing none. Okay, assuming no intervening motions to amend, you can call the vote.
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Aye.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Nimmo,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
The next business in order is approval of the housing master plan. We're doing presentation. Is there a presentation? Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Do I have a motion to approve the housing master plan?
I move that the board approve the housing master plan as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
We'll now have 2 minutes of discussion for each board member, beginning with Director Ramirez.
Thanks, team. This feels great. I'm sure it feels great for you too.
It does, yeah.
I appreciated the update, and especially everything that was incorporated. I did have a question in regards to this plan. If we go into an accelerated decline, is there a process or a plan in place to adjust?
What type of decline are you talking about? Like a financial decline or an enrollment decline?
Well, I meant enrollment, but financial might also be a question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Rachel's online there, and I shared our enrollment forecast with her, and they looked at all the numbers, and certainly we could adjust as we go. I think the beauty of this plan is it's a living document. I'd love to be in a situation where we like accidentally built too much housing and we have surplus housing and we're trying to figure out how to fill it. I don't think we're ever going to get to that situation. So we looked at kind of staff to student ratios, projected out about 10 years, and it really doesn't impact our forecasts at this stage. And so it'd be, if 5 years from now, we're starting to see that, wow, our, staffing levels and our housing levels are starting to match up, and then we could stop building, we could stop, moving forward. But I think it's a really distant challenge, but we have taken it into consideration, and it just didn't impact the goals as much as we thought it might. And Rachel does have a little overview if you'd like her to share it, but if you have everything you need, that's fine too.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate it, Rachel.
Okay, I can do that. Give me 1 second. It is a condensed version of things that you all have seen. Let me just make sure that with Zoom, are you seeing the full screen?
Yep.
Excellent.
Well, outline mode, but
Oh, no, I can fix that. Okay, is that better?
yep.
Perfect. So again, this is, there shouldn't be anything new in here. This is, some tweaks to what we talked about, the last time we chatted, I think a couple weeks ago, and, what we've been talking about throughout the whole process. But, for anyone who might be listening or in the room who's new to this, just a very quick overview. So the four key components of this work were, what are the housing needs? What are the housing opportunities? How do we structure a framework of how we meet housing needs? And then what do we actually do over the next 10 years? And what's that timeline look like? A couple key principles that we were keeping in mind throughout this whole process. One is the focus on both recruitment and retention. We can't do one to the exclusion of the other. We need housing in order to recruit new staff, and we also need housing in order to keep staff that come work for the district. And so we made sure to hold both of those needs. The second piece is geographical equity. And so as we're balancing competing interests and working in a limited resource environment, where do we prioritize resource allocation? And so understanding where needs are larger. And so, thinking about basalt housing costs there, housing costs are high everywhere, and they are highest in basalt. And then also considering where district resources are, particularly with land. And then speaking of resources, understanding we're in a constrained environment, particularly financially, and making sure that what is being recommended is achievable. And so as we'll see, there are years assigned to different actions. And in the full report, we have sort of a year by year for the next 5 years. And that's not set in stone. That is, in a world where we have resources available each of those years, this is what we would like to do. And if resources aren't available, then we shift. And then we thought it was important just to reiterate the process and the outreach. And so we didn't do this in a vacuum. We heard from staff throughout the process, both through a survey and focus groups. And so we heard from about 2/3 of district staff in this process. And then also as this material was being developed, you all saw it and provided input, as did the executive team, the leadership team, the staff housing committee, and then the full draft report was distributed to all staff as well. And so a very quick overview. As Ben said, the needs are high, and so shifts in conditions will impact the needs. But when we're talking about 434 housing units over 10 years, if that changes by 10 or 20 units, it makes a difference, but it doesn't change the trajectory that we're on. And that's sort of the total need. And then what we're looking at in terms of a goal is meeting 75% of that need. So we know that the district, one, can't meet 100% of needs of employees, and not everyone wants their housing to be provided or subsidized through the district. And so recognizing that reality, we're setting a goal of 75% of that, or 326 units over the next 10 years. And that accounts for both the current needs of existing staff and then what we anticipate future needs to be as staff turns over the next 10 years. And as we're thinking about how we meet these needs, we try to account for the different ages, life stages, life conditions of staff and what that means in terms of housing. And the biggest piece of this was really trying to keep in mind the ability for people to move and shift between different types of housing. What we heard through the outreach was that people who got into staff housing felt really lucky and also felt stuck. And so the ability to be able to move within and between units as life stages happen can be really impactful. And so thinking about the opportunities the district has, land is the biggest one, particularly in a high cost, developable land constrained community. And so we looked at sort of the key land holdings of the district and really honed in on the tree farm site, the sites on JW Drive in El Jabal, and then the Bridges site, the remainder of that site. And then also considering Riverview as that next stage, depending on how many units we can get on some of these sites, we might need to look to Riverview as sort of that last piece of the puzzle to meet the need. And then funding is obviously a huge component. And so we had a really good sit down with Christy, and she brought some really great reality to the conversation, which we were aware of, but we wanted to obviously make sure that anything that was recommended fit within current and anticipated future financial conditions. And so being really realistic about the revenue that is available now and what might be available in the future, and really focusing on low or no cost actions over the next 5 years, and looking for the 2030 to 2035 window for some of those higher cost strategies. And also keeping in mind that this is not the district's challenge to shoulder on its own. There are a lot of organizations throughout the region working on housing, and who also have housing needs and who have different and complementary resources. And so building up those partnerships, if the district can bring the land and someone else can bring financing, and we get housing from multiple organizations, that can be a really great way to capitalize on the resources that we have and help contribute to addressing a regional challenge. And so the framework, this is something we've chatted through, but these 3 pillars of providing housing, supporting housing, and connecting housing. And so providing is, building and housing staff. Supporting is financial or other support. And then connecting is really utilizing some of these other regional organizations and helping get staff connected to other programs that exist in the region. And so this is a summary of the action plan. Like I said, the report has more of a year by year, but looking at individual year actions for year 1 to 5 within that provide, support, and connect buckets. And this really creates the framework of the work plan for Ben and for his team to really hit the ground running and start making some of these changes. And I know that some of that work, some of those conversations have already started just based on opportunities to start chatting with folks about development opportunities. And this is, the culmination of about a year of effort and, really great conversations throughout, really beneficial input and feedback from staff, and what we hope is a realistic plan to move forward. And then to one of the earlier comments, it's not set in stone. It's intended to be revisited over time as 1, progress is made, and 2, conditions might change.
Great.
Okay.
I think that's the end of the overview. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
You want to go back to your 2 minutes?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
And just a follow-up question, and thank you for Appendix A and being able to provide all of that information in regards to the current role and location of everyone who was surveyed. I did have just a follow-up question in regards to the equity piece you were talking about. Were there any implications to equity or labor relations that you felt were necessary for the board to be aware of in doing this master plan?
I I don't know how to answer that. I don't know
Are there
exactly what you're asking.
any concerns regarding, like if anybody will dependent on housing or this plan, where we might have some equity concerns or any relations, like labor relations, like with our CBC negotiations or anything that we feel might become an issue for us moving forward.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Not that I can think of, the one thing that has come up historically and that there was at least one comment in the staff feedback, was a lot of staff are sensitive to the idea that they don't want general fund dollars diverted to housing because they want to preserve general fund dollars for salaries and things that benefit all staff. And there's an understanding that when you do housing, it benefits some staff and not others. So I don't know if that's the type of thing you're asking about, but that's a concern that's kind of always been there. And I think we're in a good position with that we do have this housing fund that stands alone. As we consider mill levy and ways to do recruitment and retention, in the past, we've allocated some of those dollars toward housing. We might do that again. And I think that'll always be a concern. But I think the main thing is for people to understand that the way we have things set up currently, dollars for housing are not competing with dollars for salaries.
Thank you.
Great. Director Kuhlenberg.
Thanks. This is exciting to have this at the finish line. So that's, I think housing has been an interest for me for a while. And so to have this here is super exciting. My question really, is probably one that is unanswerable in some ways, but I'm curious if in development of this plan and our district need, we've contemplated the other projects that are online, the other housing initiatives that are coming from the state, these other resources that are also lining up, right? So hopefully we get help, right? Cavalry's coming to help us out. And I'm curious that one, how much we've contemplated this, and then two, what mechanisms or plans do we have for adjusting or shifting if there are additional supports that come into play or different opportunities for our teachers and staff to utilize?
Yeah, thank you. So two things there. One is, yes, I've done a lot of research over the past couple of years about how we can access some support and grants and Prop 123 and all these things that people have heard about. In general, state and federal housing dollars aren't available when you restrict access to that housing based on employment. So it's generally like counties, municipalities, if it's just open to anybody who works in the area, they can get those dollars and we can't. Fortunately, and it sounds like there was a presentation at CASB about it, there's some effort at the state level to do some targeted housing funding for school districts. And so we're absolutely in the loop on that. I met with a person who presented, Dr. Cole connected me with her and gave input and feedback kind of both ways on that. So we're all ears. I think, fortunately, our school district is really very well known statewide as a leader and an early leader in housing. So we've got kind of this 10-year track record. So we hear about things and people reach out. I mean, at least once a month, somebody just kind of cold calls me and says, can we consult? Can we learn from you? So we're always staying abreast of all that. And I think to your other question about, to what degree could we adjust if resources became available? 100%. So for example, the plan says we don't have money to build more rental housing that we need to capitalize and finance until we do another bond. Well, if some great state grant program becomes available 3 years from now instead of 5 years from now, we're ready to go. I mean, we've got these sites identified, we've got the data, we know what we need, and it's really just financing that's our obstacle.
Thank you.
Director DeFreitas.
Thanks. Yeah, Ben, I'm so glad that you brought that up about this district and the staff in it leading the way in this conversation in the state. I am so impressed with the work that staff's done around this, especially Ben, bringing your vision and your strategic eye for project management at a scope and scale that we really haven't touched on before when it comes to capital improvements, at least. I don't think we've done anything as a district quite this far reaching. And yet I look at the memo and I see not only the steps plotted forward, but also a good summary of the steps of stakeholder engagement that got us to this point, the intentionality behind the housing committee and the outreach and the just thoughtful pieces that have been brought in. I'm really blown away. I think this is incredible. I love the strategy that's built in to reflect on it too, as it does, if it does need to adjust, you obviously have those levers. This is really incredible work, and I appreciate my colleagues on the board who've picked this up and driven it forward as well, but really staff has just outdone themselves. So thank you.
Director Nemo?
I'm just curious, like in all of your surveying or talking to teachers and staff and stuff, like what is the general feel? You know, I come from small town Kansas where, I mean, this was not an issue. They just got to buy a house that they could afford. Like, what's the general feeling out there with the teachers? Like, are they, I don't know, are they just like, yes, we can't wait for this? Are they kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, what's their feeling?
I mean, I think there's a general acceptance and understanding that this is a very high cost of living area and that housing is almost impossible to access on any really, normal working person's salary in the valley now. And so people get it. And it's not, the school district's fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just the way that it is in the valley that we live in. So I think there's an understanding and an acceptance. I don't think anybody moves here today and is unaware of that circumstance. So they're choosing to move here for all the great reasons that we all live here, and accepting that. Then when people deal with their housing options, they're so limited and they just want more options. They want, as Rachel said, the option to move into a bigger or smaller unit, move closer to where their kids go to school or where they work or where they like to, recreate or whatever it is. And so I think people are really enthusiastic about the idea that we're going to help expand those options, both on the rental front in the longer run and on the ownership front in the shorter run. As Rachel said, people feel stuck a lot of the time in our housing. They feel very, they tell us that they feel a lot of gratitude to have the housing, but they also feel very limited by it. And so hopefully, our next project is an ownership development in El Jebel, more than likely, relatively soon after the adoption of this plan. And then that'll open up some opportunities for people to move out of rental housing into ownership and really kind of sink their roots in and settle there.
And is this similar to some of what Skico has done with their different types and sizes and stuff? I know, because I know you can, well, I guess that's more with rentals. I don't know, they have different sizes of rentals and styles, like, and have you talked to them at all about
Who's that? Eco dwelling out of
Eco?
We have reached out to Skico. They have a development planned actually in the same area on just across the road on JW Drive. And so we're learning from them and the process and everything. But I can't speak to their unit type.
I was just wondering how well it works to like shift families from one size to the next and, how you juggle all that. Just wondered if you had checked in with them. One other question on here, figure 7, it talks about family members and unrelated roommates. And then there's also another one that says unrelated roommates. And it probably seems weird, but if you could just explain that difference to me.
Let me find figure 7. Do you have
I
a
know.
page number there? Because I'm
18.
Thank you. Scrolling through my 64 pages.
I know, sorry.
I think I probably know what that was. Is that from the survey and just the household types?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the just unrelated roommates is just people who are unrelated to each other exclusively. So 3 people who just find each other, live together, family members and unrelated roommates, is a family or a couple and also someone not related to them. And so just getting at the trend that we've seen in a lot of our work of, families or couples bringing in unrelated people to live in their housing unit with them to subsidize the overall cost.
Okay. And is it fast and easy to tell me what the other was?
In terms of the other household type,
Yeah.
it ran the gamut. I don't have it. I can pull it up.
Okay. No,
But
it's fine.
a lot of it is like, I'm renting a room from my parent, or like it's a lot of them, where it's clean, we'll reallocate those into other categories, but some of them are just sort of any and all type of.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Could I add one comment there, Director Nemo? So
Yeah.
that data, I'm glad that you drew our attention to figure 7. That's one of the things that it's kind of buried in the report. That's going to be some of the most valuable data though, when we do our next project, because for example, we're looking at, ownership housing is generally for people who've been here a little bit longer. We want them to be permanently in their jobs and really committed to the district. So we might say to a development partner, we're looking at people in years 4 through 10. Match those household types and those income levels to the housing that we create. And that's something that we've never had before. We've always done little surveys and stuff, but it's been a little bit of a shot in the dark to try to hit the target. And so this is, it's a moment in time, but I think it's going to be really valuable data. So I appreciate you pointing that out.
Okay. Great. I don't have any other questions, but I am really impressed by this work. So thank you for putting it together, Rachel and Ben and the whole team. It's just great. It's great to have it as a tool for the team going forward. And I appreciate how you brought us along in the process over the last few years. And before that, I'm sure. And I think we've had a few deep dives in this most recently in October. So, and I also appreciate how you gave us an update on the questions we had in October in the staff memo. And also, I just now noticed that I got a response to my board tracker request from a few weeks ago on other developments that are adjacent to us in the political environment. So I'll take a look at that. I hadn't seen it before. So thanks for that.
Sure.
Okay, we have 5 minutes of open discussion starting now.
I just wanted to apologize to Rachel. I was gushing about staff and I forgot to call you out. I know your support has been integral here, so I appreciate that. No one in this room was standing around and admiring the problem. You guys were all like working towards it, so thanks. Fixing it.
All good. We like to work in the background.
I just wanted to take a moment too to thank Economic and Planning Systems, Inc. I was lucky enough to be part of the team when we first had interviews, and it feels really great to have this document and to also know that you guys were with us through the whole plan and more. I just really appreciate the opportunity to feel like we executed this really well. And so thank you to our team. Thank you to everyone who's been involved, to our housing committee. I think this is really an important document that will continue to support the Roaring Forks School District and schools and staff for years to come. So thank you.
And if I can interject just a minute, I wanted to follow up on Director Nimmo's question, and maybe Dr. Park and Chief Brockman may have other additional components to share. But when we think about staff who are enthusiastic about this, I can tell you hands down, hiring managers are like, get it done. Let's go. Like they are so excited about this work and anxious. We're about to kind of enter into hiring season. And, the minute we talk to prospective staff, like the second question they ask us is around housing. We have been very limited in our ability to recruit. And as Chief Baumfalk shared, retain staff when they want to shift housing. This is going to be, if we can really stick to this plan and implement completely, it's going to be transformative for us as a district. And if the board directors remember, this is part of our strategic plan. This is actually about closing the achievement gap. This is about kids. What we know from the research is that if we can recruit and retain a high quality staff who reflect the diversity of our kids, who live in this community, who feel safe and supported and happy, that is going to have a direct impact on the way our kids learn and our outcomes. So it is, I will name that, like, our hiring managers are so excited that this work is continuing and that we're continuing to put the pressure on and have a target. And I don't know if Dr. Parker, Chief Brockman, you have anything to add, but I just know that that's a group that's fired up. Yeah. So just wanted to lift that up as well.
Great. Okay. Well, with that, where are we? Do I have a motion to approve the housing master plan? We already did that.
You already did that.
Okay.
Just vote.
Are there intervening motions to amend? Will you please call the vote?
Director After,
Aye.
Director DeFreitas,
Hi.
Director Kuhlenberg,
Aye.
Director Nimmo,
Aye.
Director Ramirez.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. The next business in order is discussion on policies EBAB, ECF, IC, ICA, Exhibit EF -E-2, and repeal of current policies EBBD, EDB, EDC, and EI. Each board member will have 2 minutes to share comments or ask questions, and we will begin with Director DeFreitas. I think it's your turn. Go ahead.
Thanks. I've gotten most of my questions answered in policy committee. And I want to leave time, Director After, for your thoughts on the ECF policy. So let's not lose time for that.
Okay. Director Nimmo?
I've got nothing now.
Okay. Director Ramirez?
I wanted to ask a question on EBAB. I saw that there was discussion on that, and I just wanted to ask a follow-up in regards to regulations that may exist or that need to be created to support this policy being implemented.
You know, I would say a lot of those regulations in terms of implementation are done through specific departments like facilities, early childhood, custodial. And so, you know, I think we really follow some of those like county and state-based regulations. And so didn't necessarily feel like we need to duplicate that. Does that kind of get at what you're asking?
It does, but I think the language, as I read it, and I don't know if my colleagues could disagree with me, but I felt like it sort of implied that there's some duty of the board to make sure that this is happening. And so that's where my question is stemming from of, is there an accountability on the board to ensure this is happening, and therefore do we need a regulation for it?
Justice. The board will direct the superintendent to have a plan created.
Yeah, I think that second paragraph, I think that's correct, Dr. Mark. I think the board's duty, as it's written this way, is it's really through the superintendent. So you're kind of delegating that responsibility to the superintendent.
I don't know. I still feel like it says like will cause to be created procedures. So then does the board have to see that? I don't know. I guess I wanted to make sure, and I felt like it was important to ask. I think even in seeing that this is required training for custodial grounds, I just wanted to make sure there isn't a responsibility here on the board. And I think it'd be important for us to clarify and make sure that that's right. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to say on that. No.
When we round robin. Just use your 2 minutes, then we can address.
Okay. That was it on my questions for this policy.
Okay. Director Kuhlenberg?
Thank you. I think that I got most of my questions answered via policy committee. I did put the same question into the policy, so you guys can see the comments on the side, because I agree that the language says the board will cause to be created, implying that the board is directing the superintendent in some way to make sure that these are created. And so that was my question, is if they do exist. And I understand that we have them. So I think that it's just, this policy is so broad and that it touches every department that it still does concern me also that we got a response from our COO, but we have early childhood, we have nurses' offices, we have food services, we have our maintenance departments, we have, and so we've hit on some of them, but because the breadth of services that we provide is so great and it is subject to so many different regulatory agencies, there is still a question for me too, just that ensuring that the board is doing what this policy says it will do. I don't necessarily think we need a regulation. I think I would just like us to know that there are already these procedures in place, or that it is being addressed and they're being created so that we're in compliance with this policy. And even from the framework of identifying all of the offices and departments that need these procedures, or if it's easier for us to have a one district-wide everyone has their own. In the case that there isn't one, this is the district's overarching procedure that hits all the big marks, I think would meet that. And maybe that exists somewhere already in a staff handbook or something. But that was my main question on these. I think I also echo Director DeFreitas. I think that ECF, sorry, you can have that time for ECF. I agree with your comments on ECF, and I think we discussed that quite a bit in policy committee, and so it would be interesting to have that discussion as a board.
Sure. My turn. Yeah, my only comments were on ECF, which is energy conservation. I was delighted to see that in 1981 we had this policy in place. Surprised it hadn't been updated since then. And just wanted to make sure that if there's interest from staff in putting a more robust policy in place to ensure that the district has the, codified and formal like policy backing to really have that would like put into writing, I think, all the transformative work that you all are already doing, then I would like to see that. Not at all intending to like make a long policy for the sake of making a long policy, but given the cost of the amount of money we spend on energy, given that it's part of sustainability is part of our educational programming, the policy as it is, and even with the revision, feels remarkably light relative to other policies that we have in place. So if there's appetite from the team to think a little bit more deeply about what like a really secure policy would be for energy efficiency, electrification, climate resilience, then I'd be happy to help think through that. And I'm not trying to get outside of your strategic plan whatsoever, but since it came up, then I think that's my reaction to it.
Thanks, Director After. Really appreciated your thoughts and comments, and they were substantive. And so my recommendation would be, we had Chief Baumfalk review those and was very open to wondering if maybe I think our recommendation to the board would be to eddy out perhaps with you and Chief Baumfalk and perhaps either Director Kuhlenberg or Director DeFreitas from Policy Committee to rework a draft that could then go back through the Policy Committee process, if the board would be amenable to that.
So would that be so this is first read, so we would do that, and then when that process is done, it'd be second read. Okay. Okay, that's fine with me, if that's okay with you. Okay. Thanks for listening. I don't have any other comments. We will now have 5 minutes for open discussion.
Regarding the ECF discussion, Chief Baumfalk, I know we've done building efficiencies and received rebates, but I am not pulling up which system it was and which building that are good examples of the district's commitment to this right now. Can you remind me what I'm thinking about?
Director DeFreitas, so you're asking just what actions we've talked about along the energy efficiency front over the last year or so?
Well, we're getting rebates from the actual energy company at one point or I forget.
Okay, thanks.
The presentation we had from a consultant.
Yeah, there's a couple of different things I can highlight briefly. One is we work with Clean Energy Economy for the Region, a nonprofit here in Carbondale. And they are our advanced energy management consultant. And that preceded my time, and it just sort of fell off during COVID when the goal was to flood the buildings with air rather than be conservative about energy use. And so we picked that project up and have saved last year, I believe we saved about $300,000, and it actually really helped us with our budget challenges. That work continues with Clear, and we'll do a summary probably in the spring for the board. Separate from that, we did some HVAC upgrades this summer and used like some air source heat pumps, and we're able to shift some fuel from natural gas to electricity, and we're able to get some rebates. And we went pretty broad with that. So those are still rolling in, but I think we've received about $50,000 in rebates, and there's about $50,000 still outstanding from kind of the whole range of utilities. So now as we work on future projects and we do LED lighting upgrades and all that, we work with core We work with Clear and we work with the utilities to identify which rebates are available.
And I think was hoping you'd bring that up. Thank you so much. That was a helpful summary. Whatever we can do if we're working on the language, Director After, to sort of capture that connection between economic viability and efficiency, and make that a district priority. So thanks for that.
I have one question about equipment not unusually expensive and subject to easy damage. Who gets to determine that? Or I don't know, would we want any more specificity on that? When you're, oh, this is, sorry, EDC. Yeah, authorized use of school-owned materials.
No.
We're actually repealing that policy.
Oh, you are, or we are?
So we did talk about some of that in policy committee and started getting into the language, and then the team
I see.
decided it's not a required policy and it seemed to
Okay.
make more sense to repeal that.
Okay.
Good catch. Okay. Any other comments? All right, thank you. All right, we're not voting on.
No,
Okay,
no vote.
okay, great. Thanks, really appreciate it. The next business in order is discussion on 3 board tracker requests from Director Ramirez.
There's also one from me included on the agenda.
Yes, we discussed this briefly. We're going to, Director Ramirez is going to talk through all 3 of hers, and then we're going to do 2-minute round robin after she talks through all of them. And then we'll do 5-minute round robin, and then we'll go to yours. Okay, does that work?
Yep.
Okay. Great. So Director Ramirez, over to you to discuss your 3 board tracker requests.
Yeah. So I'm working on a couple of different things, and I wanted to make sure we had time to add them to our policy to our conversations for next year. And tonight I'm actually missing a couple, which it was a good flag for me. So I'll be bringing those forward to our next meeting. But I wanted to talk about a couple different things that we as a board have talked about and wanted to make sure we agreed was going to be put on an agenda moving forward. One is the professional development policy. One is finance and policy committees being put into our policies and being codified. And then a board policy update to reflect additional leadership elections. Policy BDA, as it currently stands, it is called Board Organizational Meeting. This is where we talk about elections. And so that one would be updated to include an additional election in 6 months, which would be in June, to reflect the opportunity for the board to have further discussion on leadership, especially after an election year. And then we have, oops, sorry, I need to go back to my tab. Professional development policy, which would go under policy BBA to include further conversation on our responsibilities as board members in getting professional development and making sure that we as board members are up to date on our role, our authority, powers, and responsibilities and contributions really as board members. And then policy BDE would be a new policy, and that is in alignment with BDF, which would include conversation around our finance and policy committees. It could go under BDF, which is committees of the board. But I think just in seeing other boards like Adams 12, it made the most sense to create something new. I am working with a colleague out of Jeffco Public Schools who is also working in alignment on these finance and policy committees for her board. And I think it would just be really important for us to have that codified into our policies. And I did note just some of the updates that we need to do in regards to our financial policies, but I'll put that into the next board update alongside the resolution for the library cards. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so let's do 2 minutes each of this questions or comments on what was just shared by Director Ramirez. Director Kuhlenberg, can you go first?
Sure. I'm in support of all of these updates. I think this is the next natural step in ensuring that some of the work that this board has done over the last handful of years is put into practice and that it can outlive the people sitting at this table. I think the work identified has been valuable and beneficial. I would agree that we should create BDE, not include it in BDF. I think that that's overly complicated. And I appreciate, we use the same codification book that the National Association of School Boards uses. And so they do have a manual where we can look at those lettering suggestions and the names of each policy. So I'm in support of all three. I think that they're relatively easy lifts, and I think that they will have positive impact.
Director DeFreitas?
Okay, got to the mute button. Sorry, I was like 6 tabs in. Yeah, I'm in support of all of these. I think they feel like no lifts because you guys have done the big lifts with this a lot already. I think, yeah, developing those, putting them through policy committee, that would be the next step, right? Like you guys, do we need to assign who's writing them, or Director Ramirez, is that something you've already taken lead on? Do you need support with that to get a drafts together for policy committee? Maybe just advise on your capacity.
I think that I can write these. I probably will use support from Jonathan and before we send it to policy committee, but these seem like really easy lifts. It's just language, additional language. And I think I have a lot of experience being able to do that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Director Nemo?
I support them. I'll say coming off the election year, like there's a lot you don't realize that you need to know. It's so coming in, the whole professional development thing, policy. I support it. And I guess I hope too, moving forward when we are looking for new board members, that this is something that we can talk to them about before they get on, so they understand that it's part of the commitment, which they should be excited about.
Okay, I am curious what the policies will say and withhold judgment until we actually see them, especially on professional development, since I'm not sure I'm curious what that one will say. So, if there's consensus about moving it forward through policy committee, then that sounds fine to me, and we'll take a look at the content of it once it comes back before the board. Yeah. Thank you. Jasmine, yeah, Director Ramirez will kick it off for us. Okay, great. 5 more minutes of discussion on those items before we move on to the next. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. 1 second. The next item is related to a new policy related to incorporating student board members, policy JIBB. Director Kuhlenberg will now present her proposal.
Thanks. So I submitted this through the board tracker as a potential future agenda item. It's something that I've been hoping to accomplish in my time on the board, and finally feel like I have the time to tackle. Director DeFreitas and I both attended some sessions around this at CASB this last weekend, and I think it gave me the oomph to get this started. So I would like to propose introduction of policy JIBB, which is student member, student representative policy. The purpose would be to get to a point where we had students sitting with us up here at the dais, and I will not get into the specifics of it. I drafted a policy last weekend. I don't think that this is going to be an easy lift. I do think that this is going to be a lengthier process and that we will need to involve our student organizations at each high school. So I think it's going to take some community buy-in, community involvement, and will take staff time. So I think it does warrant a broader discussion from the board to ensure that we're all on the same page and moving something like this forward and understanding that it will take some time to get it up and running, but I do see a lot of value in it. I think that it is an experience that our students would benefit from greatly, in our communities more at large. And it was really inspiring hearing from the districts that are doing this and hearing from the students that are engaged in this way.
Thank you for bringing the proposal forward. Director DeFreitas, will you kick off the questions?
Yeah, so I sat in on a session, which had several student board members, one set from Durango. And they were all part of a national organization too, that is put together to support student board members, which I thought was really interesting. And they have a lot of great resources on their website. I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Director Kuhlenberg, of the rollout. I think the timing of the rollout to me feels like we really need to be intentional about it. And I wonder, in your mind, the order of operations, do we policy up and go out of compliance, so we just build it? Or do we spend time building the project, making the framework, having these plans in place, and then get the policy on the books when the actual program is taking shape?
I think it's a both and, similar to how we did the policies in relation to the CBA. We work on the policies while also working on the buildup in our communities and our schools. I think that if the policy is ready to be passed before the process is ready to move forward, that's not a huge deal to have some incongruence there. So I don't think it's like an apple before the cart scenario. I think we need to be working on both. I think that it's going to be things are going to come up as we involve students in this and hear their ideas and understand how they want to be involved. And I do want to be able to give students ownership over some of this. And so I would rather work on these processes together so that we can adjust in policy if we need to, instead of first pushing a policy forward. I think that the board will have to be intentional about the work though. And so that's why I like to have a discussion with everybody, and I'd love to hear from staff on this too, if it's something that we have the capacity to move forward right now. But I do think that there has to be some sort of kickoff, and that's why I went ahead and put it through.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm interested in getting crystal clear on like the legal frameworks of student involvement. You know, where do we fall on the voting participation amount? Is there compensation? Yes, no, like all of those are answered at statute level in Colorado, making sure that we have those clear boundaries. And then I guess the next step would be some kind of committee with students in it to develop the program. And my concern, and I think not concern, but just a thought is like, we need to make it sustainable and not overreach the first year. And I don't quite know what that looks like yet, but I think I have concerns that we create a program, we make promises to students. We need to make sure that it's just absolutely tight. And I feel like a committee is the right way to go there. But I'll stop. I think my 2 minutes are up or almost up here. I can't hear the beeping out here if it's yelling at me, so sorry. Oh, there's lots of other beeping in Vegas.
Okay, Director Nimmo.
I really support this. Lots of other school boards are doing it. So I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just see what's already being done and then make it our own. And I really think if we're not involving the kids, then we're missing a big piece of the picture. So I'm excited about this and would like to help make it happen.
Great. Thank you. Director Ramirez.
Congratulations, Director Kuhlenberg, for bringing this forward and
4 years later.
finally getting this. I'm very excited. I think this is something that has been close to your heart and wanting to accomplish. And I know that there has been just some frustration of like capacity and having the opportunity to really have the time to devote to this lift. And I really appreciate knowing that you're committed to seeing this through and that this will hopefully happen during our tenure. I think this is a really important opportunity for the district to lean into, to have student voice on the board, to have an opportunity to really be a representative board of not just the staff and the district, but also the learners in our classrooms. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to dedicate the time to this and to see it through. So congrats.
Great. This is good with me for sure. I'm excited about to seeing this, seeing how this evolves. I do wonder why we don't have students participate in other ways. I noticed recently, or a few months ago, I think that I think it was Basalt Town Council had a group of Basalt students presented to Basalt Town Council about something. I know Carbondale regularly has students coming to their town council meetings. Not intending to create additional work or pressure on students or teachers, but like it seems like we could incorporate students in a lot of different ways into our board meetings, and having a bit of an audience might make it more attractive for someone to be a student board member than sitting in an empty room of some grown-ups. So just something to think through, I think, is not just how to add this potential formal role, but are there other ways that are lighter lifts to incorporate students into this proceeding in a more regular way?
Sure. I love this idea, and I have the privilege to get to connect with our students pretty consistently through our student superintendent advisory councils. And they are brilliant and have a lot to say. And I think I think this would be a really compelling experience that we would learn a lot from as a governance team. I just would, and I appreciate board directors bringing up, acknowledgement of the capacity. I think it always sounds easy to say we're going to start a committee, and shouldn't kids be interested in the things we're interested in? We hear, I'd say, multiple times a month of people saying, why don't you send us some capstone kids to do this, that, or the other? And so, I think we need to I'd be really curious to learn from districts that are doing it, who's running it, when the board director who's on point is not able to come, who's picking up the communication pieces, how do we manage turnover, just what is the lift? I would say, just in terms of the committees that we currently do run as a district, where we see success and consistency, we've been really deliberate about motivation and interest and structures and systems to make sure kids and families feel included. And so I just think we just need to be thoughtful about it. And I just would want us to be, I will just name that even it's a privilege for the superintendent student advisory councils to happen at high school. And it is a massive ask from staff to recruit kids. And I'm going to them at lunch. But I will tell you, it is probably 3 to 4 hours between meetings of deans and principals, recruiting kids, reserving space, making sure they're all there. So it's just, I just want to name that, and our kids they are incredibly active. So I would want us to be really thoughtful about capacity and considering ways to meet students where they're at. But I have no doubt that we have students who would love this sort of an opportunity and really add an important voice to the process. So we just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about what we assume is possible or easy through the process.
Thank you. Did you want to say anything?
No, I was just going to say, I 100% agree. I think that it looks really easy. You see these motivated kids at a conference and they're up there touting their experience. And that's why I say it's not going to be easy and it's going to take time. And I think it's very important that we engage students on the creation of this. And that's why I was saying it's a simultaneous process of policy development and also exploring all of these questions and understanding all of the ins and outs of the things you're naming, because there are so many little pieces to think about and things that will come up.
Thank you. We have 5 more minutes of open discussion on this unless,
I had a question. I'm thinking about the next steps and like how to be intentional and build but not overpromise. I'm wondering if there is interest, Director Kuhlenberg, from you and then staff, we could build an agenda potentially of getting someone from one of those organizations that's done it successfully, or representative from the national chapter to do a presentation to the board with how it starts. Would that be a good thing to pursue while we're also doing the drafting of some ideas at the same time?
I mean, I plan to reach out to the executive director of the National School Board Members Association, as well as get back in touch with some of the contacts that I met last weekend, and kind of start from there, just building out a document of questions, ideas, answers. I put together a draft policy already. And so I guess my question of the board is, and staff, like, where do you want me to take this? I think that there are many more questions that need to be answered before it moves to policy committee, before it really goes anywhere within our district. There are questions that we need to get right with as a board and have an understanding of our expectations. There's like some baseline questions, right? Like that I think we would have to answer before we involved more voices. And so I would propose that I do some of that and then bring it back at some point in January, either via work session or an agenda item, whatever you guys prefer. And then we could move from there.
Yeah, I think I'm wondering about yeah, maybe, I don't know, is this an offline conversation? If we decide we can put it in a work session? I mean, I think there's interest. This whole agenda item tonight is, does the board express interest in pursuing this? And I'm hearing unanimously yes. Obviously, very thoughtful caveats about what the next steps are and how to involve folks. But then, so Director Kuhlenberg, are you comfortable if you and I kind of look at some calendars? And Dr. Cole, obviously staying close with that. The only reason I'm thinking about a presentation is that, I can feel, I just want to name like everyone who's not totally on fire for this idea immediately was like counting, because it's a lot. It's going to be hours, it's going to be manpower, people, communications, everything that was named. And so I'm wondering if it would help to bring forward an example of the vision before a lot of time and commitment is asked on behalf of anyone. And I know your notes and your thoughtfulness, Director Kuhlenberg, will definitely be a part of that. I'm just wondering if it would be helpful to have that third party who's been in it for a few more years and could sort of tell the story, whether it is a work session presentation, would probably feel about the right size for that.
I think down the line, that is, yes. I don't think it's ready yet for that.
Okay.
I think there needs to be some more research, ruminating, understanding of what we want before we get to that step. But I agree that that would be very helpful.
Okay, yeah, let's meet offline with this and figure out when it comes back to the board and in what shape. That feels like it would be the next step for me.
okay, great. Any other questions or comments?
Nope. I think the best way to get kids signed up is to have them nominate each other.
Other questions?
Okay, thank you. The next business in order is board updates and appreciations, and we will begin with Director Nimmo.
Let's see. Well, CASB happened and it was very busy. It was a lot. The food was great. I enjoyed the sessions, and I really appreciated being there with my board ladies. So yeah, I just appreciate the effort that Jonathan and you guys all put in, Rodrigo, for getting us over there and getting everything signed up for us. That was really a good experience for me. And I'm just really I said it when I was campaigning, but I'm just really excited to be here with this team and with this staff. I think that we're different from each other in some really great ways. And also have like the same goals, the same focus. So I just appreciate all of you and I'm excited to be on your team.
Thank you. Director Ramirez?
Yeah, just appreciation. I'll echo to the team for helping us as we planned everything for CASB. I know it's a huge lift. Thank you, Jonathan, for making sure that everything was taken care of. I know it's a lot, and it was a lot of last minute asks too. I wanted to mention district accountability happened on Tuesday, the 9th. It was just really important I think it continues to be incredibly important for the board to be involved and to be present as much as possible during those conversations, especially when there are questions arising around process, history, procedure, just because that is such a brand new team. So thank you to Bridget and the team and everybody who was present on Tuesday. Like Director Nemo mentioned, we were at CASB, which was really great. It was really important for us to be together as a team and to be able to network with other school districts and talk about all of the things that we're doing and that others are doing and things that we should be doing. And I wanted to just mention one thing. I did have a chance to meet with the team at St. Vrain after one of their breakout sessions regarding P-Teach. And I forgot to mention that during our conversation, but I will share that with you guys via the website or via email and as well as with the board. I think that is such an interesting program. They have 7 new staff members who are graduates of their program, who interned and did like apprenticeships while they were high schoolers, and then as they went to college for teaching, were able to still stay in the classroom. And I think that's such a huge win for any team. Having 7 of your grow your own staff members in one school year is huge. And so I really wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And then we had finance committee on Monday. Thank you again to Christy and the team for all their hard work and due diligence in regards to not just our audit, but our finances as a district. I think it's really important that we have finance committee. And I'll always say that. And then I just wanted to also mention that I got a chance to meet with the director of Garfield County Libraries before we went out on for CASB. And I really look forward to having that conversation in regards to library cards for the Roaring Fork School District students in January. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Kuhlenberg?
Thanks. CASB was great. I think we got to access a lot of wonderful information, informative sessions, see colleagues from throughout the state, and just generally get to connect as a team, which was excellent. I don't feel like I have many other updates beyond what I've shared with you all over the past couple of weeks. But my appreciation for tonight, I would like to give to Katrina Taves, who's our new music and movement teacher at Basalt Elementary School, for all of the work that she's been doing. She came into the role this year, and the kids love her. They're doing K-pop dances, and she's hosting her first big performance tomorrow. So wanted to give her a shout out this time around and thank her for the energy, enthusiasm, and just all around incredible movement that she's bringing to our kids. So that's what I've got for tonight.
Great. Thank you. Director DeFreitas? Sorry, I wasn't talking to the mic. Director DeFreitas?
No, I got it. Sorry. I just had to get back to the tab that had the button. Yes, thanks for including me and working with us to all get together at CASB. That was really great. It was illuminating, definitely something I wish I'd been able to do sooner. Better late than never, and definitely going to try to lean into what I learned and the people I met there. Lots of great connections. It was really a treat to watch Director Kuhlenberg and Director Ramirez move so comfortably through those crowds where they've built these meaningful relationships and invested time on committees and learned and grown with these people across the state. I could just tell that our district has been incredibly well represented there for many years. This was obviously not an anomaly. And so thanks for letting me tag along and learn with you all. We had policy committee, but I think you've heard everything from that. I don't have any other updates. I do appreciate, I think the same right now, the name of the game is all the extra time and energy that our teachers are putting in The band director, specifically at Glenwood Springs Middle School, did a phenomenal job blending the band and choir together in a concert that actually didn't go on too long. Like, he just kept things moving. Kids knew where to be. They knew what noises to make at exactly the right time. They were respectful. It was, and I also appreciate that Principal Olson mentioned that half of the kids enrolled in that middle school are also enrolled in music, either choir or band. And so there is tremendous diversity on the risers and in the band seats. And it was really wonderful to see a representation of the whole community in that gym. So I really appreciated that.
Great, thank you. We had a finance committee meeting, as has been mentioned, a couple times now in advance of the audit presentation, which was very helpful to get me up to speed on that. We also had an internal BOCES meeting, and I've tried to keep the board here updated on BOCES related and YAMPA related happenings. So I'm glad to be able to connect with the district staff on that. Our next BOCES board meeting is in mid-January. And you and I should connect a little bit here and there on BOCES since you're the alternate now. Yeah. And that's all I have in terms of updates. Okay, great. Well, if there is no further business and there's no objection, this meeting will be adjourned. It is 8:16 p.m.
Thanks, team. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Lindsay.